Property development is a risky business and it's difficult to make a profit. But whether you've been doing it for years or have only just started, it's always worth considering the odd suggestion.
It's getting knocked down.
Right. So you weren't very pleased with my advice then?
Not even slightly.
I would be tempted to think about taking this wall down and making it a really cool living space.
I just cannot see it working.
No.
Agreed?
Agreed. It's not going to be done.
Buying a big building and converting it into flats can be higher risk and therefore is generally a higher gain. But when you take on a big building, you need to make sure you have 3 essential ingredients: tight management, tight budgeting, and a little bit of good luck. Tonight, 2 sets of small-time developers are taking on their biggest projects yet, in the hope of making huge profits.
I cannot see how this cannot give us a return of £100,000.
Earning that sort of money means getting everything absolutely right. But tonight's 2 properties are not going to make life easy. Both are huge, sprawling and complicated. In Clevedon near Bristol, friends Simon Reed and Dave Richards have bought a former doctor's surgery to convert into 3 luxury apartments. They also want a big return.
I think at the end of the day, the be-all and end-all is to make an amount of money out of it. Otherwise, if we were going to break even on projects, we wouldn't bother doing it.
Simon and Dave have experience of smaller projects, but nothing on this scale. Still, they're confident they can stomach any problems this place throws at them. But its sheer size could cause them headaches. 80 miles away in Northampton, Mark Bedritch and Kate Moravesky are also making the leap up and taking on their biggest challenge to date. For the last 2.5 years, they've been renovating 2- and 3-bed Victorian terraces. And now they're aiming higher. And how? They've bought a former massage parlour and want to convert it into 4 luxury flats.
We've not done a big project like this before, so, you know, we're excited about it. Be fun. Huh?
The property would be a challenge even to a really experienced developer. It's actually 2 buildings joined together, stuck on a sharp corner and with a complicated layout. But Mark and Kate have a secret weapon. Their friend Richard Dutton is backing their limited knowledge with his wallet.
So this is it.
Gosh, that's a big old pile of masonry, isn't it? You've bought yourselves there. And how's it working with the 3 of you? How does it work?
I retain 50% of the profit, and these 2, they share their 50%.
Right, and you're putting all the funding in?
And I fund the whole project, because it's new for them to knock buildings down and build new. And I've got a little bit of experience in doing those sort of things.
So you've got 0 investment, but 25% of the profit each?
Yep.
Seems fair.
So no beers for a while.
No.
So how much profit do you reckon you'll make from it?
Roughly 100,000.
Right, I mean, £100,000 seems a great profit from this project. What if it makes a loss?
It won't
Who
make a loss.
loses?
If it makes a loss, they work for nothing, and I've lost my investment.
It won't make a loss. The figures that we've done, it will not make a loss.
They bought the property for £225,000. They have a budget of £192,000. And they want to sell for £510,000. This works out at a £92,000 profit. But they won't see a penny until it's sold. And that's supposed to be in just 6 months' time. But that will be a real push. Rich is leaving them to it, and Mark and Kate have a massive amount of work to do first. Oh my goodness, there's a jacuzzi.
And a rabbit.
And a rabbit. and a no diving sign.
Well, it's all going, so if you want any of it, feel free.
Do you know what? I'm fine. Gosh, so the massage tables are going, presumably?
Either that or use them as a
Unless
feature.
the buyer wants to keep them.
Right.
It's all going, yeah, it's all been knocked down.
Yeah, it's all
It's
going
amazing,
away.
isn't it? It is like a garden. It's really convincing.
Very convincing, yeah.
Mark and Kate want to target the luxury flat market and reckon the best way to do it is to knock down one of these two buildings and in its place build a 3-storey extension. Inside, they'll create 4 upmarket flats, a luxury 2-bed penthouse with a terrace on the top floor, a studio flat and a 1-bed on the first floor, whilst the 4th flat will be spread over the ground floor and basement. It all sounds extraordinarily complicated, and I wonder if knocking down a whole building and embarking on a huge new build extension is the best approach. Why are you demolishing this?
Because the walls, well, this wall is bowing, so it's just not safe to build on top of. The foundations, if it's got any foundations, aren't going to be substantial enough to build 3 storeys on it.
You couldn't build above it, but why not use the building as it is?
The walls are structurally unsound, so it's got to be knocked down.
OK, so basically it's not structurally sound enough to build on top of, is the problem.
No, exactly.
It may need a bit of work to shore up this old building, but that's going to be a lot easier than knocking down the whole thing just so you can gain an extra floor. I think there's a simpler option. Looking at the whole development, I wonder whether you're not trying to force too much into too smaller square footage. So you don't do the new build, is what I'm suggesting. That you leave the unit on the right as a unit in itself, and you turn it into a 2-bedroom mews cottage.
I totally disagree.
Really?
Yeah.
But it's
The
not...
amount of work and money I'd have to spend to convert that outhouse into something livable, they'd never lend on that.
Do you not think?
No.
I'm pretty certain you would.
I really don't think you would.
Mark and Kate would do well to simplify their expensive and complicated plans. I think they should keep the rear building and create a cool mews-style townhouse. The rest of the building would then be renovated to make a 1-bed ground floor flat, whilst upstairs would be a good-sized 2-bed maisonette. Doing it this way, they could make a similar profit for a lot less work, and it would be done more quickly so they could sell and move on. Kate seems sold, but Mark's not buying.
I can hear the objections now when you come to sell it. Someone who's looking for a property like that will want a garden. They'll want some sort of outdoor living. It's a different market. This is a penthouse apartment. That's a quaint little mews cottage, or potentially would be. And I can hear the objections.
But you'll also have objections to a tiny studio flat.
It's very clear what we're doing here. We've got 4 lifestyle luxury flats. Then suddenly the other option is you've got 2 apartments and an outbuilding that's going to cost more money to renovate rather than knock the things out.
How do you know it's going to cost more money? Because you're not having to...
Well, in my experience, I would have thought it's going to be easier to...
clear the land and rebuild.
It's going to be quicker to actually knock the whole guts out of this and start again, and to have a new build there than it would be trying to faff around making this into 2 apartments and a quaint little mews cottage.
80 miles away in Clevedon on the Bristol Channel, developers Simon Reed and Dave Richards are also confident they can make a good profit converting this former NHS surgery. They bought the building for £400,000. They intend to spend £265,000 on the renovation. They hope to sell for £760,000. And that means they could make a £95,000 profit.
I think we've both really got our heads screwed on when it comes to the financial side of the project, and I don't think we would be taking a flyer on a project like this. No developer would. Therefore, we've taken a calculated risk that we believe will come off.
Simon and Dave have had some success on small developments and are so confident in their plans, they're starting work without waiting to hear whether they've got all their planning permissions agreed.
Okay.
But this is a far greater challenge than anything they've done before. If they're to make the profit they want, this build needs to run like clockwork. Within a day of getting the keys, they have a team of labourers on site who start ripping out the guts of the old surgery. Simon and Dave know that good project management is key to the success of this development. And with all the space the site affords, they've hired a portable office to keep them on site but out of the way.
And it's been a good first day.
Yeah.
Just crack on tomorrow now, 1 day down and...
4 months to go.
Yeah,
That's
fantastic.
In Northampton, getting started is proving rather more complicated than Mark imagined.
This is the party wall, and the problem is that the next door neighbour, our next door neighbour, owns half and we own the other half, and she's got a kitchen built onto one side of it. So by knocking this down, it's going to affect her kitchen. But by having to go through the formalities of employing party wall surveyors, this is where the delays are.
Party wall agreements can take months to sort out, and until that time, the rear building stays where it is. Their 6-month schedule is already looking shaky. Mark Bedritch and Kate Moravesky have a plan to make nearly £100,000 in just 6 months. But as time ticks by, waiting for a party wall agreement, this is looking increasingly unlikely. They're not keen on my suggestion to simplify their plans and are convinced that converting their former massage parlour to 4 luxury flats is the way forward.
I've got absolutely no concerns about the end result at all. And I know I'll shift them. You know, I'm absolutely confident. Unless the whole, they stick interest up to 8% and then the whole country goes bankrupt, then we've got a problem. But
Don't tempt
can't see that happening, can you?
Of course, to sell them, they need to finish them. But Mark and Kate are already halfway through their 6-month schedule, and they've only just got the go-ahead to start demolishing the rear of the building. At least they could if they had a demolition crew.
Just had to make a phone call to the demolition people. I was expecting them on site at 8:30. It's now 9:30. Tony, the guys, basically forgot they're on health and safety courses this morning for 3 hours, which means they're not going to be here until after lunch now. By the time they finish, it's going to be half 11, 12 o'clock, so they're going to have lunch, so it's going to be 1 o'clock. But he's just reassured me that it's going to be down ground level next Friday.
Mark is going to be project managing this build himself, and he really can't afford any more delays. In their budget to cover all the demolition, build, labour and material costs, there's just £86,000. On top of that, there's the electrics and plumbing, which has been allotted £25,000. On the kitchens and bathrooms for all 4 units, there's £15,000. To decorate the entire development, there's £6,000. To cover the cost of all their legal and sale fees, they've allowed £41,000. As a contingency for unforeseen problems, there's £17,000. And this gives a grand total of £190,000. It looks good on paper, but they're already 3 months into their 6-month schedule of works. Mark is beginning to appreciate that the jump into new build development is a far more complicated process than he'd imagined.
There's a lot of minefields, there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of legislation, which you don't really, we don't get to sort of have to deal with in sort of 2-bed, 3-bed Victorian refurbs. So it's a lot more stressful. But it's, as far as I'm concerned, we've only got to sort of go through it and learn about it once, and then the second time around you'll be up to speed in all the different sort of paperwork and legislation and stuff. But it's a bit of a nightmare, a bit stressful.
Mark is right to think that second time round it will be easier, but they need to make a profit now. I have a suggestion which may prevent more delays. Do you have quite a tight schedule for the building works here?
We've got a very ambiguous schedule at the moment.
You've got a woolly list.
We have a schedule which was is slightly out of date now.
I mean, I don't think that your building schedule is detailed enough. Problems are going to happen anyway, and if you have a detailed schedule, then you're in much more control of where things are going wrong. I think the best thing for you to do at this stage, simply because you just don't have the experience yet to run a site like this, would be to get a project manager in just for a month who would pop in every week. They will help you write a detailed specification, detailed schedule of works, and make sure that everything is on track so that you know exactly where you are. After the first month, if you've got everything organised and up and running, after that, it's plain sailing. But there is a knock-on effect. If you have problems when you start, you'll really pay for it in the end.
Yeah, I've got no real, believe it or not, I don't disagree with you on that one, really.
Fantastic. This is a good step in the right direction. Mark immediately gets some experienced project managers onto the site so they can quote for being involved in the early stages of construction.
We'll go in this corner. So you've got the services at the moment over in this position here. There.
Project managers will take care of the paperwork and manage the schedule of works.
Just go through here.
Mark, you were suggesting to us that you already have a formal schedule of works prepared for you, but there might be a certain ambiguity in that.
Yeah, because of the delays, it needs to be re-looked at.
Right, OK. And is there a chance then that we might be able to help to involve you in rescheduling that, so to bring it up to date?
Yeah, there'd be a chance, depending obviously on cost.
Yes, indeed.
Project managers normally charge from 10% of the construction cost, and for that they'll oversee every aspect of the build. If Mark took them on for just 1 month, long enough to get him back on the rails, it would cost him a mere £3,000.
I can't justify on this site. You know, at the end of the day, it's only 4 flats, it's only part new build, it's part refurb. You know, the service they're offering is for sites that are a build cost of, let's say, 1.5 million or 1.1 million or something. Anything under that, I really think that the service they've got is far too detailed and really not necessary.
I think Mark's crazy to turn this down. It's a tiny amount of the overall budget and could easily be saved if the project manager spots other potential problems in advance and enables them to come in on target. On a complicated build like this, there's an awful lot that could go wrong. In Clevedon, Simon Reed and Dave Richards are making good headway converting this former surgery into 3 apartments. They're only 3 weeks into their 4-month schedule, and already the 2 downstairs units are taking shape.
We're ahead of plan. We've got a schedule of works up in the porter cabin. So no, it's working out very, very well. Dave on site, we probably speak about 40 times a day on the phone, but no, it's working out well the way it is.
The plan is to create 3 luxury flats. On the ground floor, the confusing mix of treatment rooms will be lost and the space divided into 2 3-bed garden flats. Upstairs will be stripped out to create a 3-bedroom maisonette. The kitchen will open out onto a large roof terrace, and by developing into the loft space, they will create an impressive master bedroom suite. With no garden, a roof terrace will be a real selling feature for the maisonette, but it does depend on them getting planning permission, which is by no means guaranteed.
Hello, John. You spoke to the planners? Really? Oh. That's a bit disappointing. We were expecting that it would all go through.
It's the news they've been dreading.
Are you happy?
The roof terrace on the back of the building actually has been turned down. I've got a feeling that the people around and about us have all had a little bit of an input into it, which, you know, at the end of the day, it's their gardens it would be overlooking, fair play. They've made the decision that they don't want the terrace up there, and the planner was obviously sticking to his guns on it.
This is bad news. Simon and Dave had been hoping to sell to the town's wealthy retirement market, who flocked to Clevedon for the fresh sea air. Without the roof terrace, fresh sea air will be in short supply. When you have a major planning setback, it's often worth reassessing your market. With no outside space, Simon and Dave now ought to aim for a younger buyer. They could make the maisonette more appealing by giving it a more contemporary layout. This is the kitchen, isn't it?
Yes.
And next door's the sitting room.
Yeah.
I think that with the views, and it's such a nice space, that I would be tempted to think about taking this wall down and making it a really cool, open-plan, modern living space with kitchen at one end and then a table and then the sitting area at the other end. And Clevedon's a beautiful area to live. You've got views out over the sea. If you make this in a really contemporary flat for a young professional market who are not here all the time, I think are more likely to hit the mark. By moving the kitchen units to the rear wall of the property and removing the internal wall, Simon and Dave could create a spectacular open-plan living space which will make the most of the sea view. More importantly, this will open up the market to a wider range of buyers.
Yeah, it was something we've actually obviously haven't looked into, but I can see your train of thought. Yeah, I can see probably an opening there would work well, because obviously then you would get the sea views, and obviously lacking the French doors we wanted here, it could be a good focal point to have.
Although Dave seems sold on the idea, he can't make the structural changes until his partner Simon has had a chance to think about the layout.
I think it's a really nice idea, but I just cannot see it working. It's not as if they're going to be throwing parties every weekend here.
Yeah.
And
it's a bolt hole at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah. So agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah.
What have we done?
Yeah.
Personally, I think this is a mistake. Open-plan living could add real value. It's a really good selling point for the younger market because it fits better into their lifestyle, giving them the flexibility to decide where the focus of a room should be. The buyer will also decide how he wants to use the room. The use of furniture means that any space can easily be changed. It's a major change of plan, but if Simon and Dave are to hit the huge profit margins they're aiming for, they've got to keep all their options open. In Northampton, Mark and Kate's profit is looking a bit of a pipe dream. They're 4 months through their 6-month schedule and demolition has only just begun.
When the roof came off, that was a massive milestone as far as I understand. That was finally, thank God, it started. Because before that, they were just ripping out bits and pieces from inside, and it just, even though they'd been on site for a couple of days, it still felt like nothing was happening. So yeah, last, I think it was Monday and part of Saturday, and it came off. It was like, thank God it's happened.
But Mark's optimism is short-lived as the work demolishing the rear building comes to a halt.
Even though it's only 2 walls and it's only theoretically 2 days' work for demolition, we can't do anything because there's a mains primary gas line here, which we considered it was secondary. Our engineers come down and it's a primary one. It goes up there, through there, and there's a meter in there that no one's claiming, and it's live, so nothing else can happen until that's been resolved. So. Could take forever.
A live gas pipe on site is a nightmare, and trying to get the gas board to cap it in double-quick time is putting Mark's skills as a project manager to the test.
No, it's engaged. I'll be like that all day.
And when he does finally get through, it's not good news. It'll be another 4 weeks until the pipe can be capped. It's yet another big blow to his already stretched schedule. It's starting to feel like this development could take a very, very long time. "80 miles away in Clevedon, and Simon and Dave are still racing along. But I wonder if their desire for speed might come at a cost. The new dormer window they fitted is bigger than the one they originally submitted to planning. And now you've made the dormer slightly bigger, haven't you?
Yes.
Than you've got planning permission for.
Yeah.
So have you put in retrospective planning?
Yeah, we have.
Because it's quite a dangerous game.
It is, unfortunately. We've had to make the dormer wider because of the staircase coming up into this space. The simple fact is we've got so many different trays following behind that we can't afford to sort of stand still and wait for the planner to make his decision, give us a yes or a no.
They might think they can't afford to wait now, but it could cost more in the long run if they have to change it back. Unfortunately, 2 weeks later, and that's exactly what they're told to do, when planning permission is again refused. Undoing all their hard work will cost a lot of time and money. Simon has no choice but to try and change the planners' minds.
I just wondered whether now it's built, whether there is anything that we could physically work together on and just kind of find a way forward.
If the dormer has to come down, the entire build schedule will be thrown out of sync, and this will severely dent that all-important profit margin. In Clevedon on the Bristol Channel, developers Simon Reed and Dave Richards' transformation of their 3 luxury flats has hit a snag. They've built a dormer window that's bigger than the one in their plans, and they've been told to take it down.
It would be literally 400 mil, and that is it. Everything else stays the same.
Using all the charm he can muster, Simon needs to change the planners' minds.
OK, thanks then. Bye. Ultimately, he's turned around and agreed that it would be stupid to start tearing down something that's already there. And so, therefore, we just got to send him through some amended plans, and he'll sign it off as an amendment. That is really good. So they're not all horrible planners.
They got away with it this time, but carrying out building work without planning permission is a risky strategy and not one that you'd recommend.
We persisted.
Work is back on schedule, and what a schedule. They're 3 months in, and in budget and on time. In Mark and Kate's Northampton massage parlour, it's a different story. 4 months into their schedule, and they ought to be fitting out the interiors. Instead, they've only just been able to cap off the gas pipe. And there's a long way to go yet.
To get the rest of the building down was a relief because of the delays, and it also meant that we could sort of start with the groundswork and everything else, so it seemed to be going on forever. But yeah, so it was a relief to get that down. Finally get the, some of the footings in and start seeing some sort of progress.
But this is still one slow development. The problem is, the longer it goes on, the longer Mark and Kate are not earning a single penny from the project. So when they are finally finished, they need to sell and sell quickly, which means keeping a very careful eye on the property market. Northampton has seen an explosion in the number of flats being constructed. 3 years ago, they were selling like hotcakes. Now the market has slowed, and the studios and one-beds are particularly difficult to sell. I'm not convinced putting a studio and a one-bed on the first floor is that good an idea. So I want to show them a 2-bed flat nearby.
What do you think? It's a nice feel as you walk in.
Yeah. I mean, the interior of the flat is lovely, but I didn't really bring you here to talk about how the interior of the flat looks. I mean, the thing about it is it's actually not that much bigger than the space that you're hoping to fit your one-bedroom and studio flat. And with the amount of space you've got, I think it would be worth thinking perhaps about changing your one-bed and your studio flat into a 2-bedroom flat.
Possible.
The idea with the two smaller, the flats, the studio and the one-bed, was that you'll get a really nice trendy flat for a first-time buyer who can afford under 100 grand. I would have thought it would be easier to sell 2 properties at cheap as chips prices, but getting a nice trendy little property.
I think you'd be right if they were really cheap, but I don't think that £80,000 is really cheap for a studio flat in that area, in this location. I think if it was really cheap and it was 50, 60,000 and you were churning out studio flats, there'd be a big market for it. But you're asking quite a lot of money for a studio flat. It doesn't take them long before Mark and Kate come to a decision.
I think because of how the market is at the moment, and also the delays we've had, I think it's probably even more important. I've got two units on as opposed to putting all my eggs in one basket with one unit.
And having something that, like we said, for the money, there's a lot more out there doing the same, just trying to shift their properties. Whereas if we offer something that a first-time buyer can afford, it's, you know, almost making the market kind of bigger.
As well. So, you know, I mean, it might come back and haunt us, but I think the best tactic is to leave it exactly as it is.
So, no change here. And I also hope this decision doesn't come back and haunt them. In Clevedon, Simon and Dave have been watching the market closely and know the value of outside space. With some lateral thinking, they've come up with a way of adding considerable value.
Where this office and container actually stands is quite a good size car park area. So what we're proposing to do is landscape part of the car park to create a garden for the top floor flat.
Most of the apartments in Clevedon are managed units which have communal gardens or no garden at all. So turning part of the car park into a garden will go some way to compensating for losing the roof terrace. Outdoor space is always going to be a huge bonus, and even though you may think there's nowhere to put it, there's often a solution. If your space is really limited, with a bit of imagination, even the smallest of courtyards can become a chic outdoor room. If the only way is up, a flat roof can be turned into a luscious lawn. This development in North London had no outdoor space whatsoever, but the architect came up with the sensational idea of having a retractable glass roof, creating a wonderful sanctuary come rain or shine. The property was snapped up as soon as it came onto the market. A small garden in the car park at Clevedon is a good solution.
We could have taken the view, let's not give them any garden, but at least we're creating a space that's going to be relatively private for them out the front or fully enclosed, which to my mind is the best alternative really that we can offer.
Their close monitoring of the market has other benefits. They've built up an excellent relationship with the local agents, who have already managed to generate a lot of interest in the property. They're going to try to sell the flats off plan. Allowing viewers to see an unfinished building can be a risky strategy. Many won't be able to see beyond the dust and debris of a building site. But Simon and Dave think it's worth the gamble. If they can sell before it's even finished, they'll have fewer mortgage repayments and could increase their profit.
But I think you can start to get a feel of how it's going to be.
Just my taste. This is exactly what I would have chosen myself.
Within a week, they've struck gold and sold the 2 downstairs apartments for a total of £55,000 more than they'd originally hoped.
I think we were quite fortunate with the first 2 apartments that went, because it's not very often that people can really get a good idea of it and really have the confidence to buy off plan.
Simon and Dave were lucky to find people who were able to imagine their finished development. Most people, when buying off plan, need a helping hand. And here are a few tricks of the trade that will up your budget, but will also give you the best possible chance of seeing an early return on your investment. Making a miniature of the finished development is an old-fashioned but effective way to help the viewer make the leap between building site and finished product. Depending on its size, a model will cost between £1,000 and £3,000. But if you want to go more high-tech for the same kind of money, you can take your development into a virtual world. A more modern approach is to let the computer do the work for you. This is the very latest in digital modelling and a very exciting way to see your end result. But there's no substitute for the real thing. It's really worth busting a gut to get one property up and running as a show flat, but make sure it's the one with the best light, noise and views. This penthouse show flat in London is as spectacular as it could be. It's aspirational, stylish and contemporary. And you couldn't fail to be sold by it. And finally, remember to point out to your buyers that in a rising market, they're likely to have pocketed a tidy profit by the time they move in. In Clevedon, the off-plan sale of Simon & Dave's 2 ground floor flats is a fantastic result. But they still have a maisonette to sell, and until they do, a profit is still not guaranteed.
That's the thing, the camera comes on automatic.
In Northampton, any profit is a long way off. Mark and Kate should just be a month away from finishing, but they haven't even finished the extension. The tricky site is causing problems. There's nowhere to park, so receiving deliveries and just getting materials on and off site takes forever. Mark and Kate have always been determined to stick with their 4 flats plan. Shoehorning so many units into this building means that they're going to have to be very clever with the little space they have. The interior design is Kate's job, so I want to show her some clever ideas that will make the flats feel bigger. What's here? They've got these cupboards which are built within the studwork.
That is really clever, actually. That's the big tick. I shall pinch that.
So will I. And this is really, really clever. They've got these drawers in the stairs. They've got the little drawer for the little shoes, a bit bigger drawer, and then the biggest drawer for the really big shoes at the bottom.
That is really clever. I would really, really like that.
This is another clever idea. They've put the radiator behind the door. Now, wherever the door folds back, you can't use that space anyway. So by putting the radiator there, it means that it folds back against the radiator, so it's hidden away.
It's a good idea.
These ideas could make a real difference. The problem is the development is still a building site and all the delays have soaked up so much of the budget, Kate's job is practically impossible.
The hold-ups on the flats have obviously eaten into my budget a little bit, so I'm having to work harder. I looked at a flat with Sarah, which had top-to-floor storage, which was very narrow, and I really liked that, and that was really clever. So I'd love to have used that throughout, but it just wasn't, you know, within budget. It was too much to actually do.
The harsh truth is, Kate can do very little until she has a completed flat to work with. And a year and a half after they set out, she still hasn't got one. The schedule has so far tripled in length, and Kate and Mark still haven't earned 1 penny from the project, and they're forced back into the world of small-scale terrace developments to bring in the readies. Meanwhile, the Northampton site is left on the back burner, and I'm really beginning to wonder if it will ever be finished. Over in Clevedon, Simon and Dave are riding high on the sale of their 2 ground floor flats. But have they made the most of their maisonette by not going open plan? And it's such a spectacular view. It is a shame that you can't see it.
We looked at how it was tangibly going to work on a day-to-day basis and we opted not to do it. You know,
so that's the truth, you couldn't be bothered. In Northampton, Mark and Kate's development has hit setback after setback, and 20 months in, I still can't see this project being completed any time in the near future. I just hope their luck picks up soon. Over in Clevedon, 4 months after they started, Simon and Dave have finished. Their former doctor's surgery has had its facelift. Simon and Dave have transformed the higgledy-piggledy treatment rooms into 3 luxury apartments. Downstairs, the 2 spacious 3-bed apartments are perfect for both Clevedon's wealthy retirement market and young professionals, and so were able to be sold off-plan. Despite not going open plan and not being allowed the roof terrace, the top floor maisonette does look great. All All the rooms are perfectly finished and beautifully dressed, and what's more, they've pulled it all off within schedule. A glass wall at the top of the stairs means the master bedroom gets the full benefit of the light flooding in from the new dormer. Although the kitchen is a good size and the sitting room has a sea view, I can't help thinking that open plan would have been better suited to a broader market. And it's such a spectacular view. It is a shame that you can't see it.
It is definitely a beautiful view. But when developing, we not only look at the development of the property to sell it, we also look at how it's tangibly going to work day to day.
Of course, but I mean, you can still get from the kitchen through into here.
Yeah, absolutely, you can. But the back of your sofa would be here, and it'd be burning the arm of it on the fireplace. So.
This is a weak argument.
You've got to be joking.
You couldn't be bothered to take the wall down.
I wouldn't want cooking smells coming through into my lounge area.
Yeah.
We weighed it out, we looked at how it was tangibly going to work on a day-to-day basis, and we opted not to do it. But, you know,
so that's the truth, you couldn't be bothered, isn't it?
No, at all.
One thing you can't criticise these developers for is their ability to control the costs. I rarely get to say this, but Simon and Dave came in under budget.
We saved a lot of money leading up to starting the month during the sort of exchange and completion process. And in that month, we really negotiated the prices down with a lot of the suppliers.
Well, I think the lesson to learn from this development is that you had a very realistic budget in the first place. And whereas many people think, oh, well, I'll try and do it for 100,000, and when they're just simply not going to, you thought, well, the realistic figure on this is £250,000, and you came in just under, which is actually just good budgeting, really. There's a real lesson here for first-time developers. Labour and materials were right on the nail at £110,000. Electrics and plumbing also came in on budget at £39,000. As did kitchens and bathrooms for all 3 apartments at £11,000. Decorating and landscaping costs came in bang on at £12,000. Legal and sales fees stayed at £69,000. Out of their £24,000 contingency, they spent no more than the £3,000 it cost for the garden in the car park. This fantastic money management meant they came in £21,000 under budget at £244,000. This gave them the financial freedom to adapt their plans during the build. One of my worries with the central apartment was the fact that you were never going to get permission for the roof terrace at the back of the house, and so it didn't have outside space. But I think by creating this private garden within the car park, it's a really good compromise.
The back roof terrace, it was maybe slightly ambitious, but as you say, I think it's a good compromise, really, for, you know, I think it's as good as it ever could be.
It's not absolutely ideal, but stepping down from ideal, it's pretty close. So,
yeah, definitely.
So I think you've done well. With 2 flats already sold, Dave and Simon now need to sell the maisonette for £225,000 to make their £95,000 target profit over the whole development.
It's not a huge lounge, but nice and comfortable, with a nice Victorian-style fireplace.
This is lovely, nice size. Nice to have the windows in the bathroom.
It's slightly tight into the eaves, and it's not a huge room. The developers have managed to create a section of private garden, which I think will be a huge benefit to this flat.
Definitely a bonus with the maisonette in Clevedon.
I would value this property in the region of £265,000.
I think the value is in the region of £280,000.
I would put on the market for £290,000.
The 3 valuations came in at 265, 280,000 and 290,000. I mean, all of those figures mean that you'd make a stupendously good profit. Very successful. I mean, it's in less than a year.
Basis, 17 weeks, sort of 2 days of site time.
Simon and Dave bought the whole property for £400,000. They've spent £244,000 on the conversion. If they sell the maisonette at the top valuation, then all 3 units would have sold for £825,000, giving them a total gross profit of £181,000. But that depends on what the potential buyers think of the maisonette.
Oh, quite a nice entrance hall.
Nice sized kitchen.
That's a good arrangement.
If it was mine, I would probably knock through that wall.
This feels actually less crammed than the room upstairs.
Never seen one like that before.
It's quite nice to have that extra bit of space outside.
Well, this is a lovely view.
Wow. This is the pièce de la résistance. I would say it's a fair price for this part of Clevedon, and with all the bedrooms and garden that it has.
It's looking good for Dave and Simon. It shows a little bit of experience can go a long way.
And would you do anything differently now if you took this house on again?
Yeah, probably put a door in about there.
Hey! You're a wise man.
I think we've been very lucky with this particular development. We knew it was a 1 in a million, and as you can see from our figures, it's sort of has been a very profitable project. But off the back of that, you know, they don't come along in Clevedon all the time.
They don't come along anywhere all the time.
Just 2 months later, Dave and Simon sell the maisonette for the top valuation of £290,000, making this development a real success story. But what of Northampton? Well, sadly here, progress has been slower than ever. Problem after problem has continued to stall the development. And as for Kate and Mark, I hope this project doesn't put them off developing for life.
Dave and Simon's experience may make property development look easy, but Northampton shows it can be far from it. 2 years in, and Mark and Kate still have no flats finished, no flats to sell, and profit seems like a distant dream.